And there you have it. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Headlines. I wanted to see how our taxpayer pesos are being spent by the Tourism Bureau to promote Puerto Vallarta in this very interesting summer month. We mentioned a few days ago that they were preparing new campaigns to lure tourists to our city. And this is the first one that I've come across. I figured I would throw it out there just to get your comments, reactions, etc., etc. As you know, this is Coffee and Headlines. We get together every day, 10:30 in the morning, live here on Facebook to share things like this, to share news about what's going on in the world as it affects us, to share ideas, to stay inspired, to stay motivated. And here we are. My first reaction of the video is well, I'm a little jaded. What can I say? Whenever I see this expression of Puerto Vallarta being the friendliest city in the world, I always fear that one of these days some little city somewhere is going to write some opinion piece in some newspaper saying, who the fuck do you think you are? you know? But it is friendly. It is a great city for those of us that live here. We're here for a reason, and one way or another, for me, it's been home for almost 20 years. I'm not going anywhere, and I love it. I see videos like that, and I get a little nostalgic because I know that as much as they're trying to paint a pretty picture, and they were very careful in the editing to not include any scenes where there were a ton of people in them. We know that we need to work carefully. We need to move forward, but we need to work carefully. So that's the video. I thought I would share that with you just to show you what's going on with the promotion of our city. I see that Kathleen gets a little teary-eyed with the video. I hope they're good tears. It's been a difficult summer for everyone. It's been a challenging summer for the world. And for those of us that are trying to move forward with our businesses, with our lives, of course, it is very, very challenging. But I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it. Very cool Saskatchewan. I'd like to be in a very cool somewhere because it's been really, really warm. Last night was hot and humid again, which makes me wonder just how many of you are using air conditioning at home. For me, it's one of those things in which I've resisted the beast for years. Every now and then I try to go and visit friends that have air conditioning and spend the night at a place that has air conditioning, but I've resisted it for the most part, and I've tried to save myself some pesos and not go there because I know that it is expensive. But every summer I say to myself, this is the last summer that I'm going to do it. I don't know. I don't want to spend that kind of money on air conditioning. Anyhow, we have some news, random news about this, that, and the other today. I have a new friend that I want to introduce you to, and I have a few questions to throw on the polls just because I figured we can have more than one question in the poll. Why not? So let us get started with a few headlines just to get everybody involved. For starters, if you've been looking out at the ocean and you see an increasing number of vessels out and about, it's because, yes, they are now allowed to take tourists from one place to another. This has been going on for a few days now. Of course, while they report that it is a good thing, the numbers are not there. They're just getting about 10% of the number of passengers. This article tells us that a year ago, it was an average of 1,000 tourists would hop on a boat or a panga or a vessel of some kind to go somewhere per day. And right now, the number is less than 100, which is, of course, understandable. There's just not that much tourism going on in the city, but at least it is good to know that there are some people out and about. I had lunch at Langostinos yesterday, and I was sitting there. we were sitting, my friend Paul and I were sitting upstairs where there was a ceiling fan, and we could see all the umbrellas being used by families who were sitting close together. And I thought to myself, yes, they are sitting close together, but I'm going to hope that these people traveled here together, or they're part of the same cluster and they're comfortable with one another. They're not causing any harm to anybody else. And for the most part, I think they're in the safest place they could be, on the beach. So I was happy to see that there are people out and about. I chose not to sit on the sand more because it was just really warm than anything else. But even when you take into account the risk involved with being out and about, and this is a good moment to remind ourselves that we are not supposed to be out and about for the sake of it. Even when we know that there's a risk, it is nice to see the town coming back to life one way or another. Uh, to that effect, I found this other article in which the health secretary of Jalisco um, is insisting on making an appeal to the population to be careful. If you go out to go places, go by yourself. Don't make it a group event. Um, Keep your safe distance. Keep your face mask on. I mean, all the things that we already know. The government continues to expect people to abide by. And I noticed that there was a question at the very beginning of today, Claude asking about masks being mandatory, and and again, masks are as mandatory as they get. In other words, I doubt that anybody's going to put you in jail for not wearing one. But yes, masks continue to be as mandatory as they can possibly get. I certainly hope that all of you are out and about wearing face masks. If you're not, just consider that maybe you would be sending a good message to those around you if you're willing to wear your face mask. I cannot stand mine because of the heat. I wear it out and about. As soon as I get into my car, I take it off. And as soon as I get home, I take it off, obviously. But it is important to try to follow these guidelines as much as possible. Because if you don't, things can happen. There's this other news item that I saw in which a hotel in Marina Vallarta has been shut down because people in their common areas failed to follow the guidelines. I also heard through the grapevine that a popular bar in Emiliano Zapata was closed down, although I don't know if it was COVID related or what. We know that there's been a lot of activity in the bars lately, which are not supposed to be opening anyway, but they are opening with food from other businesses. It is a little tricky, I suppose. Um, and it's going to be one of those odd situations that are going to happen until they are allowed to open altogether. In the meantime, if you're out and about and you see a situation that is irregular, it's just a matter of making a call to reglamentos and making sure that you let them know how you feel. I think it is important that we do that. We continue reading about COVID 19 versus Airbnb. Apparently, up to 35% of users in Mexico City have stopped using the application altogether because they were not getting enough tourism through Airbnb. And what they're doing now is going back to traditional methods of advertising their rentals. This tells us that 7,822 people in Mexico City stopped using the application altogether. That's a lot of properties. And we continue to see this kind of behavior elsewhere, and I would imagine that it's going to continue to be a rocky situation for Airbnb, not only in Mexico City, but here in Puerto Vallarta and elsewhere around the world. We mentioned the fact that theaters and cinemas were able to open, and they were able to open in Guadalajara City, but local theaters have not moved forward with this guideline, primarily because the guideline has not been published in the official journals of the state. Um, So I actually went into the movie theater, uh, the, the website yesterday to see what they were playing out of curiosity, and lo and behold, there are no movies advertised as of yet. We don't know exactly when the movie theaters and cinemas will be allowed to reopen um, in Puerto Vallarta. Meanwhile, in Guadalajara, uh, not that many people turned out to go to the movies on a Monday. Well, who goes to the movies on a Monday? I ask myself. But after 3 months of being closed down, the first day was pretty dismal in Guadalajara City, where 23 different movie theaters or movie theater complexes were reopened to the public. Again, would I want to find myself in the movie theater? Not just yet. It is very tempting because of the air conditioning, but not just yet. And that's just me. I wonder if you would feel comfortable going to the movie theaters. I think we asked that question the other day in a poll, and the vast majority of you were not all that crazy about going to the movie theater just yet. Um, we also find out from Noticias PV that the environmentalists in Puerto Vallarta continue to be on the lookout for whatever activities are going to be unfolding along the banks of the Pitillal River. They're also concerned now about the work being done by the city or not done to take care of all those places where rivers end up by the ocean. Unfortunately, a lot of these locations are prone to be full of garbage that is not maintained properly through the year. And when the rains start to increase, floods can happen as a consequence of this. So we are going to continue to keep an eye on the work that folks are doing to protect our environment. So important nowadays. Let me take a quick look at what your air conditioning usage is. And most of you have air conditioning at home. Lucky you. Some of us don't. Lucky us, I suppose. Well, I enjoy air conditioning when I have access to it. But again, I don't know that I would have it all the time. Let me take a quick look at any comments you may have. Yes, it is very warm, and we'll have a look at the weather in a second. If I was Dave, I would agree with him because I would probably just use it in my bedroom as well. Yes, you're absolutely correct. Things going on in the United States are fairly chaotic right now because of the face masks. We've been following the news, of course, and it's just sad. It is very, very sad what goes on north of the border. Anyhow, let us switch gears and talk about the weather and other items that I want to share with you. Well, it is very, very hot out there, or it feels very hot. It feels like 89 degrees right now. It's 82 degrees, 77% humidity, and it's going to be pretty cloudy for the rest of the hour, for the rest of the day. By the time we get to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, we will have had some rain, not a lot, but it will feel even warmer because we're going to get a little bit of rain. By 2 or 3 o'clock, it'll feel like 100 degrees outside. So this is probably not going to be a good day to be out and about. I would suggest we stay indoors for the most part, if possible. And I wanted to fill you in on this business with Facebook in case you haven't been following the news, because it might come up in your conversation. As you know, Facebook has been reluctant to monitor closely hate speech in the platform, including some of the messages that are being put out by politicians. Quite notoriously, Donald Trump was censored in Twitter a few weeks ago, in which the president or the chairman of Twitter announced that some of his tweets were included a clause that said, check your facts or something to that effect. And Donald Trump did not take very kindly to that. And of course, Facebook has been under pressure to monitor hate speech in a similar fashion. They haven't been doing that. So now, I don't know if you've been following this, but a lot of large advertisers, and I'm talking Nikon, I'm talking Coca-Cola, I'm talking large groups, are boycotting Facebook during the month of July at a tune of, well, I don't see the actual amounts here, but it's been, the profit loss for Facebook has been quite considerable. This particular article I found useful, and I'm going to share with you because it includes what the civil rights groups actually want Facebook to do with this Stop Hate for Profit campaign. There are 10 steps that includes hiring a C-suite level executive with a civil rights background who will review the company's products and rules for discrimination, and other different types of guidelines similar to that. We see here a number of companies such as Honda, REI, Hershey, Coca-Cola, Levi's, Patagonia, Eddie Bauer, and Dockers are among the companies that have now decided not to advertise on Facebook during the month of July. So we'll have to see what comes out of this. And I wonder how your use of Facebook has changed with the pandemic. I know that Facebook was always envisioned as this place where we could get together with friends and stay close to our families and so forth and so on. And all of a sudden, the pandemic has brought out interesting colors in so many of us that use the platform to communicate with one another. And there are some strong opinions out there. There are some constructive ones, and then there are some that are just difficult and challenging to take. So I put together another little poll for you to share at least a little bit about where you are in terms of your Facebook usage, how affected you feel by the whole thing. And while you're answering this, I'm going to take a look at some of your comments. We'll come back to this in a second. It would be great if the municipality would clean up the mess below the Insurgentes Bridge over the Rio Quale. I agree with that. I assume that part of that work is part of the work that the city has committed to following through on with the university. We'll have to see when that'll happen, and hopefully it'll happen soon. Let's see, there's a question here in Spanish about PrEP medication at SeaTac. I couldn't answer that because unfortunately I'm not affiliated with them or don't know exactly what they're doing. That might be a better question for them directly. Let's see. Yes, it took major corporations for Zuckerberg to get it together. Money, of course. Well, again, it'll be interesting to see how the whole Facebook thing unfolds. You know, Facebook is a corporation. They're entitled to make money. They're entitled to being successful. But at the same time, public opinion is very strong lately as far as human rights and discrimination and hate speech is concerned. So anybody needs to be very, very careful with the positions that they take, certainly at that corporate level. Quick look at your reaction, and I see that a number of you are not wanting to get too close to what's going on with conversations that are negative. I can't say that I blame you. I am on Facebook quite regularly because it's part of the places where I gather information or where I can at least get a sense as to what you're thinking about. But I find myself not reading a number of people that are just too challenging for me to read right now. And that's not a fault of other people. It's my own fault. I think everybody should be able to say whatever they want. but I should also be able to turn my way or turn my sight into other topics, particularly when they're a little bit more uplifting. And speaking of uplifting, I want to introduce you to a new lady friend that I have. And here she is. And this lady friend I discovered last night. I was doing my usual evening YouTube business, just seeing what YouTube sends my way. And I discovered this lady, and her name is Grażyna Bacewicz. Grażyna Bacewicz. She was born in 1909 in Poland. She died in 1969. And she is the second Polish female composer to have achieved national and international recognition. The first woman to achieve such recognition in Poland was Maria Zimanowska in the early 19th century. Anyhow, I found myself YouTubing last night, and YouTube recommended that I pay attention to this concerto for string and for string orchestra by Grażyna Bacewicz, and I turned it on, and it was composed in 1948. It's considered her most important work. I didn't know this. I'd never heard her music before. It lasted about 15 minutes, but I was riveted by it. And it's a neoclassic work, so it's not difficult to handle in the ear. The harmonies were very interesting, similar to harmonies that you might hear in a film score, for example. And I know the comparison is really not fair, but I'm trying to make this as approachable as possible for anyone who might be curious about listening to this music. The concerto is organized in three movements, like most concerti, the first one being lively in its tempo, the second one more introspective, and the third one was also quite lively, and they were absolutely beautiful. And I woke up this morning and went looking for it again, and I wanted to hear it again, and I actually found a different version. The version that I found last night was not as fabulous and fascinating as the one that I'm going to share with you. So I'm going to leave with the links for this concerto for you, wondering how often you allow yourselves, or I'm going to say how often we allow ourselves to be exposed to new things, be it a new book or a new podcast, like we were talking about the other day, a new piece of music. Sometimes I fear that whereas it's easy to say that we're curious about the world, we want to explore all kinds of things, in reality, we may be somewhat more reserved and reluctant to try new things. And I worry that this pandemic, this whole business of staying home and not staying very engaged with the world in real time or in person, will make us people that are less likely to want to go try something new. So I'm going to invite you to try this concerto, and hopefully you will enjoy it. Hopefully you will be interested by it. If not, I would love to invite you to spend maybe a few minutes, if you want, while we're getting to the goodbyes, just sharing what piece of music, what book, what movie, what something just really moved you unexpectedly lately. And throw it in your comments, because I know that I'm going to be paying attention to what you're commenting on, and more than likely I'll go and explore a couple of things, and hopefully you will also go and explore a couple of things as well, and make it a part of your routine, to try a new book or a new piece of music or a new something. So I'll leave that. Karen comments, you would love me to teach a music appreciation class. Well, I have, Karen. I have in the past. It all started at at the Palm. We started doing music appreciation things there. Those were more edutainment than other than anything else. Then I did some stuff at Encanto, and then I was doing some stuff um, at the Boutique Theater, and then I was doing some stuff at Los Mangos Library for a while. I've been doing music appreciation here and there for several years now. I love it. I love the activity, and as we were mentioning the other day, I do hope we will be in a future in which we can all safely get together and talk about music together and enjoy it and listen to it together. Doing it online is a possibility, but as we've mentioned before, reproducing music without having the proper authorization always becomes a challenging thing when we're doing things online. So hopefully, um, we will do this again sometime in the future when we find a suitable space where we can do it. Um, and if you have any thoughts or comments or suggestions, or where we could do something like that, or where you would feel comfortable sitting around and discussing music, it would be really interesting to know. And I appreciate your remarks about it, and I appreciate the fact that it is important to you as well. I feel that we nurture our souls so much through music and the arts, and it is something that is very um, in very dangerous places right now because of the circumstances around the world. So whatever we can do to spread our love for performing arts with friends in whatever capacity we have is something that I'm sure is going to make the world a better place. With that thought, I see some interesting comments that are coming in. Thank you very much for that. Julie Bunker, Angelina Jordan. I don't think I'm familiar with her, but I'm definitely going to go research that. Um, the Ma Vie en Rose. That's a beautiful film. Thank you for that very much. Oh, I started listening to that blockbuster podcast, the one that in which the second season has to do with James Cameron, the director, and it has a really fascinating beginning. Again, the way sound designers have teamed up with storytellers to create these environments in which you put your headphones on and you're completely mesmerized by all the sound effects and the storytelling and everything is just amazing. So um, check it out if you can, or share your thoughts about what you're listening to. I see somebody's listening to El Divo. This is wonderful. I love El Divo particularly because my dear friend Miguel Almaguer is our musical director, and of course he is now in pause in Monterrey, waiting for them to start all their touring again. But I was chatting with him yesterday. He's working on a piano recital that he wants to bring to Puerto Vallarta. Hopefully, that will be something that we can enjoy later on this year. And that's pretty much all that I have to share with you today. As always, I'm very grateful for your company. I'm grateful for your comments, and I'm grateful for the fact that you are sensible individuals and you are sensitive to what's going on, and that means a lot to me. And I very much appreciate the fact that you come back every morning or whenever it's possible for you to share your thoughts and your comments with me, which in turn nurture my view of the world that we're living in. Today, I'm excited because my TV repairman, well, he's not mine, but he will be mine for an hour, I hope. He will arrive in half an hour to find out what's happening with my television set. Maybe the first thing that I will want to watch when I put the big speakers on again will be this Concerto for String and Orchestra by Grażyna. And again, I will leave you with a link to that, along with all the other things that we talked about today. As always, thank you so very much for joining. Thank you for spreading the word about Coffee and Headlines. We're turning into a really wonderful community, and I hope we can keep it that way moving forward. Have a great Tuesday, and I will see you again soon. Be well.